right. So if you live or visit West Virginia, say hello for him. All right, so we'll talk about iOS development today. We'll also talk about kind of small business creation. How many of you guys own a small business, whether it's an LLC, S Corp, C Corp, something else? All right, a couple people. So you guys have gone through some of the hurdles I've went through last year. Depending if you did more than an LLC, you might have gone through way more hurdles than I did. So it should be a fun talk. It's kind of open-ended, so if you have questions, just throw some things out there and we'll discuss them. So in terms of me, this isn't the me like what I do for a normal job every day. This is my kind of like side business fun, what I do, you know, for the passion part of my life other than work. So I've been building iOS applications using RUBYMOTION since June. And RUBYMOTION itself we'll talk about and go into what that is, how that works and whatnot. RUBYMOTION itself is very new. So the fact that I've been doing it since June is actually pretty avant-garde relative to the timeline of when it came out. Never developed iOS or Android or Symbian or any other platform before for mobile. No background in Objective-C. If you've done iOS development proper, you most likely had to do some Objective-C to get to that point. On the business side, I have an LLC, single-member LLC running out of the state of Michigan. So if you're from a state other than Michigan, some of this might not be directly relevant. You might not be able to click on my links at the end of the slide deck and make an LLC in your state. But I think at least a lot of the base parts should be similar if you're going to do an LLC, hopefully. So at least, if nothing else, you'll get a little starting point to work from. And really, in terms of the business side, and this factors in the development side, I'm just looking to make more than I'm spending on the venture of doing an LLC. So it really is, again, a fun side project kind of thing, a learning opportunity, a way, especially since I do some consulting on the side, just to kind of move that money and the revenue I'm taking in into a way that the IRS won't ding me for it in the future. So it's just kind of a safe place for me to do some work and also get some fun out of it. And in terms of business accounting, I mean, I have a couple degrees and whatnot, but they're not business degrees. They're not focused on accounting or financial or legal. I have a disclaimer that, again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a CPA. Take this information. I could be audited. Who knows? We'll find out. But at the very least, I've talked to some intelligent people that do have MBAs and that are CPAs and some other things. And so hopefully the information isn't too far off. Hopefully no one's going to raise their hand and say, you're going to get sued tomorrow or something like that. But we'll find out. That might be beneficial for me to be here. So in 96, or pick another mid-90s, early 90s year, everyone wanted to build a website. That was like the cool thing. So back in, let's say 96, because I can't think of the damn thing, trying to think of, I built my first website. It was about Nirvana. It was great. It had Nirvana MIDIs. It had Nirvana like wave clips like for 5 seconds worth. I had all these, every bad GIF, every bad HTML tag that has been deprecated for like 12 years now. And so it was fun, and it was one of those things that when you're in my case, when you're in like middle school or something like that, it's one of those things that everyone's like amazed by this. It's like, how do you do that? That's impossible. And now everyone has a website. If you've ever had a MySpace, you've had a website. You've probably done some HTML. So things have changed very rapidly, and the learning curve on these technologies always, become easier and all that good stuff. So that was the dream in 96, and now we're in 2013. Now everyone wants to be an app developer. Everyone wants to have a app in the store, something in the Android store, the iOS store, whatever. And you want to be like, look, I made an app. I was able to put this on your phone. You bought it for 99 cents. Isn't that cool? So we've changed. Again, another new technology or newer technology, a new set of learning curves, a new investment in time, and eventually another 2, 4, whatever years, people are just going to be making apps left and right. It's not going to be a big deal anymore, and this talk's going to be worthless. And I'll have to do a new talk where in 2020, blah, something interesting. We'll keep going. So in 96, or relative, I mean, you had amazing technology and use of all this, all this stuff we've been given. And then 2013, we're still using the same stuff. So whether we add 10, 20, 15, whatever years, ultimately we're going to keep going back to the same kind of like niche little things that are cute and fun and interesting, no matter how awesome of things we're able to build. So clearly we're really utilizing all of that power we're given continually. So my company is called Pardalis Labs. And as I mentioned, single member, or you'll hear disregarded entity from a business term standpoint. It's a limited liability corporation. An important thing about a limited liability corporation to take into account is, while it has the word corporation in there, the idea of a corporation and an LLC are pretty far apart from what I've gleaned over over my time working on this, and we'll kind of talk about why and how that is. In the state of Michigan, and I'm sure other places, you have to file basically what's called an Articles of Organization. It's a very, very, very skinny document in the state of Michigan. It is like, and we'll talk about how many parts it's like a couple fill in the blanks, nothing confusing, no tax, no legal code, no nothing. Send that in and you're basically a company effectively in the state you're in. What you do after that point matters a lot more than that form, though, I assure you. So the purpose, a couple major things, right, is doing this iOS thing. We'll talk about why that's important, how that relates. I also do consulting. I work full-time in information security, but then I've been a Linux admin for 10 years. I've done web development for 12 years. So I'll do a lot of consulting on the side, like I'm sure a lot of you guys. People always come up to you, whether it's LinkedIn or GitHub, right? And they say, oh, I saw you did this. Could you help me do this? Or could you spend some hours doing that? And a lot of us, of course, for most of the time, take that under the table, and then maybe you'll throw it in your taxes. And so this is a kind of way to just wrap that in neatly, do it through my LLC, and handle the accounts separately, and kind of have some nice separation there between my consulting work and my personal life. We'll talk about why that's important. And the learning experience overall. How do you build an LLC by yourself? How do you go through that process? And you know, kind of the things you learn. So it's always good to be continually learning, right? So why build a company in the first place? Mitigate's probably the more accurate one. You know, it's hard to solve problems, especially when it comes to the law. You can mitigate your risk of certain things, just like information security, right? So this gets into like corporate veil and some other weird things, but effectively what the point would be for a lot of us is, if we're doing consulting and we're doing it as, you know, Mark Stanislav, and we're doing the work, and people are coming to us and someone goes, you broke X, Y, or Z, you lost us $10 million of revenue, you did something bad, you were negligent, on and on and on. You know, without some sort of entity above you, if you will, you're going to get dinged pretty hard on a personal level. So the LLC, if you treat it right, and that means a lot of things, mostly that you compartmentalize. So if you're doing accounting, you don't just like take money out of your business account, or you don't just shove consulting money for your LLC into your personal account. That separation is very important if you do want some of those protections that you're afforded by having an NCC like this. So basically, you have a better chance of not getting directly sued, losing all of your personal money for something that your company did. So there's some assurances there, and there's a lot more mitigation than just doing stuff as you as a person. I always think it's important, and you know, you can definitely have a company and treat it like a joke and make business cards that look terrible, and you can take a company and a good idea and just run it to the ground. Generally, though, if you know what you're doing and you kind of have a focus, the company can actually make a much more professional impression on potential clients or people looking for consultants, and it gives a better just feeling like, listen, I've taken steps to do my due diligence as a person to form this entity to help your company do work. And there's just a little basis there, I think, when I'm working with people, that initial effort shows that they're serious about this, that they're not just trying to get as many PayPal invoices sent out as possible, right? It's a little bit more well-rounded, I think, from an approach for a professional. Clarity, again, the business accounting. So all of my funds that I make through my LLC, whether it's iOS, consulting, or otherwise, goes directly to my business account. I don't just debit my business account, put it in my personal account. Everything is accounted for. Everything has a transaction. Everything is done based on what the operating agreement of my company has defined will be done in terms of how payouts are done, or how deductions from a business account are done in terms of like salary, if you will. So for me, what I've been doing actually is all the money I've been taking in, I've just been doing cool stuff with. And by cool stuff, I sponsored B-Sides Detroit. If anyone of you guys are going to be there, I sponsored Moby Dev Day in Detroit coming up. I was actually speaking at ISSA, the ISSA Motor City chapter, a couple days ago, which I'm a member of, and there were 6 students that showed up with teachers from 2 schools. And I actually, if you will, donated student memberships to each student that was there, because I thought that was cool. Their teacher got them to show up. They got them part of this organization early on, where it takes people like 20 years to start getting into networking groups like that. So it's one of those things, it's nice having that account where you don't have to go, man, should I spend this money this week? Or it's cordoned off, it's separate, it's something that I can pull from and draw from for things that I care about and I'm passionate about. And again, I'm not making my mortgage payment to support my family with this kind of money. It's kind of that side account. So having a direction for tax season, again, if you've done consulting, you've probably ran into this. Well, how do I organize this money? What do I call it? Where do I put it? It just gets messy for anyone else. Companies, you can have all the fun parts of companies. You can go on Cafe Press and go crazy. You can put your logo on everything. You can throw swag out at conferences. That's my only fancy transition. So yes, I'm not those things. So company naming, I think sometimes I've actually done a startup before, and I'm pretty sure we spent more time on the startup name than we did on the business plan. Not recommended, but that it happens, right? People get excited, they want a name. What is this name? So originality. Again, if you're not going to be a big target, right, are you really going to get dinged too hard on certain things? You don't want to obviously willfully infringe on people's trademarks and stuff like that. So just some ideas, and especially, again, kind of mission related. There is a name availability search for the state of Michigan through the government, and you can type in a partial part of a name that you want. It'll show results, say whether it's taken or not. So that's a good first check. There's the US trademark system. You can search through that, see what similar trademarks come up. Who records, you can't downplay like domains, obviously, because what are you going to want to do first thing, right? Get your domain name for your new company. So look at those ahead of time. Social media, another good outlet. If you can find a LinkedIn, companies are obviously indexed on LinkedIn, so you can start looking up, is there a company with this name on LinkedIn? Does it have employees? And so on and so forth. Better off, if you want to spend the money, is have a lawyer do the due diligence for you. They know how to do this. They do this all the time, depending on what area of law, of course, they're in. But it's one of those things that if you're really serious, like this isn't just a side thing for you that you're going to make a couple $1,000s a year on or whatever, I would have the lawyer route gone through, because you don't want to have to deal with going through legal things in your first month or year just because you didn't do your due diligence on a name search. It just seems like a lot of wasted time and effort. And just something that, again, it's your company, it's your representation of whatever you're doing or who you are as a person or what you enjoy in life or however you got to the company name, right? So my company, excuse me, Pardalis Labs LLC, right? So my wife, Sarah, her favorite is animal or just big cat? I mean, I don't know what your, is the ocelot, right? And so we're talking about names, and it's great when you don't have to care what the name is. Like, I didn't want a name that was like computer tech guy. I wanted just something that was mostly unique, that wouldn't make me have to search through all this crap constantly and worry about, oh, am I infringing left and right on people? So the Pardalis comes out of the Latin for the ocelot, basically. Labs is a cool word. You got Puppet Labs, you got Detroit Labs, you got blah, blah, blah labs, right? Labs is, it's just a good generic tech word. LLC is the designation I took for my company, right? So pretty quickly comes together. So you get cool thing, you get geeky, and you get a company name. And people, of course, I'm sure are gonna agonize over their name. I mean, we talked about it for 20 minutes or something, and did some research the next day, and worked out. So don't spend too much time on that. Get to the making money part. So articles of organization, this is for the state of Michigan if you want to become an LLC, this is the form you fill out, send in with a little bit of cash, and this is what the state of Michigan will file, and this is what says in the state of Michigan you are an LLC now. So name and address, name of the company, resident agent, so again, if you're a small one-person company, that is you. Registered office is probably your home unless you're going to get some other designation for your office. You date and sign it. and send 50 bucks in, and a week later you are an LLC in the state of Michigan. Yes? Yeah, that's a great question. I'm trying to think back to the form if it said no PO boxes or explicitly. I'm not aware. That was one thing for me I really wasn't too worried about. So offhand, I don't know. Great, thank you. So as you can see, just to get off the ground in a very modest way, 50 bucks, one quick form, and shoot it over to the state, and you're done for that part. So as I understand it, and again, if anyone wants to throw some knowledge out, within a given state, effectively there are basically implicit operating agreement standards for a certain designation of a business. And so what you can do though is you can write your own operating agreement. You can take some of the implicit stuff. You can be explicit about other things and write up your own operating agreement for how your company should run. As a sysadmin or as a developer or anyone else, being explicit in anything you do is usually the best route, right? Because you don't really know when things change. You won't, you could have this company for 20 years and the state says, oh, well, operating agreements now have this or being explicit will keep you out of trouble, and it also makes you go, what do I want? What is important to me? How do I feel about these things? Rather than hoping that whomever is devising this is doing the thing that you feel should be done. So again, it's one of those things that with the amount of time you have to put into it, at the end of the slide, I'll give you a quick hint of how to skip over some of the hard part. But so some of the LLC declarations, what we are, who we are, that kind of thing. Capital investments for members. So when I created this company, I took $200 of my own money, just basically like for domain names and enough stuff to get on the internet so that when people came to me and said, could you process this payment for your work you just did? I could say, yes, I have a bank account, I have this X, Y, and Z. So capital investment, who's contributing money, ownership, interest. Again, this is all super easy when you're one person, right? It's 100%, 100%, 100% for everything. Cost profit sharing again, accounting decisions, voting. Again, this is all like, you're like, well, I'm the person doing this, I am the person. One thing that's important, and I don't really remember offhand what my full couple paragraphs said about new members, but since you are a single member, if you do want to bring new members in, you probably should at least define how that works and how they come in, and is there a requirement for an investment and those kind of things. Because again, if you start adding people to the mix and they're working under your operating agreement, if you don't change it, which you probably should update it at that point, of course, my phone's ringing apparently. There could be some things where they could sue you in the future. So just get your ducks in a row on that kind of stuff. Rocket Lawyer and a couple of the other online legal services type sites, you can very easily go to Rocket Lawyer, sign up for a free trial. You have like 30 days or whatever. You can download, create as many documents as you want on Rocket Lawyer, and then cancel online without talking to anyone, and you're done. So if you need an operating agreement, you can get I think a very nice operating agreement. One that, of course, has had some oversight by an actual lawyer. I didn't just copy this out of a Word template off some guy's FTP site. There's some basis to it at least, right? That's better than nothing. And you get to fill in the blanks, and they create the document for you around what you wanted to do or how you felt about a certain topic, et cetera. So there's a lot of benefit there because, again, it's free, and you're getting some legal oversight inherently in the process. So let's get to the other part of the government. So EIN, Employer Identification Number. This is free, and this is one of those things that when I got to the point where I realized we'll discuss, that I needed to get one, I was, oh God, I've got to go through the IRS. This is going to be like a 9-month process. I'm going to have to send like 100 forms in or something. And it's actually just an online form you do really quickly, and you basically get an instant EIN. There's no payment. It's completely free. It takes seconds. So if you're worried about the IRS portion, aside from tax season, that part's actually pretty straightforward. Now, again, this may be state to state. This may be different, of course, for S Corp, C Corp, other things. But in my case, from what I was able to learn, if you want to open a bank account in your business's name, not your name for your business account, which I think you can also get away with, okay. If you want a business account in the name of your business, or bank account in the name of your business, you have to have the EIN to provide to the bank. Now, I went through Huntington, and that process was great. There was no problems for that. And that's what they asked me for. They wanted that. They didn't want my social security number, which, again, tax season-wise, and you're filling out 1099 stuff, you're probably going to put your social security number for a single-member LLC. Again, get an accountant. You will need one if you're an S Corp, C Corp, as far as I'm, again, aware. And under a single-member LLC, if it does come up to taxes, if it does come into revenue from other companies that are hiring and stuff, it should be your SSN, not your EIN. But again, check that out with your accountant. And being an LLC does not mean you're a corporation. Limited liability corporation is very disingenuous. For all purposes, you're basically a sole proprietor to the government. LLC's designation is very, it's not as clear as you would think. In fact, when I talked to PayPal about when I was setting a PayPal account up, they didn't even have the exact business account type that I was looking for based on what I had designated. And when I called support to actually get help, which I knew was going to go horribly wrong because it's PayPal, you know, the lady's like, I don't think LLC is a real thing. I don't think. I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean LLC is not a real thing? And it's just one of those things that, again, it's the legal designation of a given state and how you form your business entity versus how the government, how other business sees your entity are different things in the case of an LLC. So just be prepared for some confusion and some headache and taking your time to go through some of these processes. So any good business, right, needs the financial and needs some management accounts. So Huntington, I got free checking, debit card, no minimums, all that good stuff. You know, maybe your bank's better, maybe your bank's worse. I did shop around for that because I really didn't care who it was through. I just wanted a free thing that I didn't have to worry about paying for ever. PayPal Business, again, if you've ever had a PayPal account, basically the same process minus the headaches or plus the headaches I just kind of mentioned. Business management, time tracking. So Paymo is one I had never heard of. I don't know anyone else using Paymo. Anyone use Paymo for time tracking? No, okay. I needed a very lightweight solution because when I'm doing like Linux consulting, I need to type a project name in somewhere and I just need to add some time and call it good and shoot an invoice out. So Cashew, I looked around for accounting. I want to say Wave is one software as a service accounting thing. There's a couple other I looked at, and each of them had their own, of course, nuances like any accounting software. I was actually using GNU Cash or GNU Cash for a while, and that was just like the worst experience of my life. It took me back to all the bad Linux software I ever used growing up. It's like the cups in terms of user interface of accounting. It's powerful though, and it's actively developed, and it will work, but you're going to put time into it, and you're going to learn it, and you're going to buy the $100 book that just came out for the new version of it. And so if you want to put the time in, and this is a big thing for you, I'm sure the power is going to help you. For me, I need pop in a number, pop in an account, get an invoice out, that kind of, just very straightforward. So Cashew, for the amount of business I'm doing, the number of basically the number of expenses and income statements or additions I add to my account, there's a finite limit for that month. So for me, that Cashew free accounting works fine. It's a great web interface. I don't have to have anything on my computer. I can update it very easily. And then there's invoicing. I kind of switch back and forth in how I invoice just on the day, but there was one cool site I at least wanted to mention, which is invoice2.me. And it's just like this web form. You fill in some stuff in a kind of a ledger format, and it gives you a PDF with all your info. So if you want a really quick invoice, go there, type your stuff in, press save, and it'll give you a PDF of the invoice you're looking for. So, and for all of these services, again, 100% free. I don't pay anything. And that's important to me because, again, I'm not making a ton of money. The last thing I want to do is take most of my profits and put it back into some service that I'll use sparingly across the month. So. Other services I use, if anyone hasn't gotten to cloud computing proper, and not the cloud, but cloud computing, Amazon does have a free tier like some other providers. So for very limited usage of technology, like one micro instance, a bunch of bandwidth, a bunch of X, Y, and Z, you can get that for a year for free. So if you just started a business, pop in your card, and all they're going to do is charge you for the overages past whatever you get implied into the free tier, and that's for a year. So if you really want to see is your business going to take off, are you making enough money to make it worthwhile to get web hosting, all those kind of things, you can kind of play fast and loose with that for a while. BizSpark, if anyone hasn't used BizSpark or gotten a BizSpark account, you're missing out. I'm not even a Microsoft guy, but the times I need like Visio or a Windows VM or something, BizSpark for a startup is completely free, no hassle, sign up. The sign up takes minutes, and then in like 2 days you'll get your account. It's basically full MSDN more or less, or at least all the good stuff in my opinion, and it's completely free for a startup business. So Google Apps, I don't think they do business accounts for free anymore. I think they put the kibosh on that finally, but I got one in time, yay me. But so there's other, of course, email and stuff. And two-factor, just because you secure your shit. Duo Security, they offer free up to 10 users. If you're a 1 or 2 person company, obviously it's free to add two-factor to all your stuff, whether it's servers or WordPress blogs or whatever else. So logo creation. I paid money to get a logo done because I'm not talented whatsoever at graphic design. So there's a company called The Logo Company, oddly enough, right? And they charge $150, and how they do their business is you effectively fill out a survey, toss them the ideas, what colors you think might be nice, any general overview of how you're feeling about your company, what it does, what the products are, what the services are. You're going to select one. You're going to iterate on the one you pick. You're going to keep going back and forth. And by their own admission, it's unlimited. I think I got up to maybe a half dozen iterations over a couple weeks. It's a very quick process if you want a logo. I mean, you can say whether or not you like my logo personally, but the process is it's up to you. So like these were some of the really early logos, like the first round logos that they had sent me that then we iterated from. So you can see, I mean, again, I like my logo, but as you can see, like you start out very rough. I wouldn't consider these $150 even type graphic designs, right? But you can get to something that I spent a lot of time going back and forth. They're very responsive, and it's a good process if you need a logo done. So business creation, we're just going to fly through this. So June of last year, articles filed, got my EIN squared away with the government, and did the operating agreement with the Free Rocket lawyer stuff. Got my bank account right after that, because again, you need the EIN for the business bank account. Registered domain, right? That's when we're starting to do something, because you have to have a domain to matter. I use Namecheap. I like Namecheap. That's the spot. Logo design process, again, a couple weeks to do that. Apple account creation, so we're starting to get into the iOS stuff, right? Duns, I don't have a slide on Duns. I really think I probably should have. Effectively, there's this organization called Dun & Bradstreet, D&B, and there's this thing called a Duns. And a Duns is basically like, in my estimation, it's basically credit reporting on a business, if you will. So it's like, instead of your personal credit report, it's a business credit report. What's important here is Apple requires you to have one before you can do the Apple sign-up process to be an Apple developer with your business. So what I got stuck in is, as you'll see here, is a 1-month gap between starting that process with D&B and finishing that process with D&B. So if you're looking to get going, they do offer the ability to pay for rushing, because what good company wouldn't force you to pay for something that should be free if you want to get it done quickly. You didn't see this yet. So in between all of this awesome stuff, I actually got married. And apparently 2 days after my wedding, because I looked at my stuff, I created my developer account on Apple. And then we went on our honeymoon. So there are a couple time gaps in here, and some of this was not, I wish we went on that long of a honeymoon. Some of that was, hey, we're married, hey, we're doing other stuff, hey, I've been out of work for a couple weeks because of all this stuff. So things slowed down a little bit for me. But by November 3rd, I had submitted my first app to the App Store. And then about a week later, the first app I submitted got approved. And we'll talk more about that, of course. RUBYMOTION. So effectively what happens, you write literal, correct, proper Ruby, and it builds 100% valid, compliant, every other word you want to use, iOS apps. An important note is it's not like some brilliant, obviously, guy just was like, oh, I'm going to do this project. The person who built RUBYMOTION actually was an Apple engineer proper, and he had been working on Mac Ruby. If anyone's ever used Mac Ruby before, cool. So he basically left Apple to do this, to pursue this startup to do RUBYMOTION. So he knows what he's doing. He knows the ins and outs of Apple, the App Store, development with Apple, all that good stuff. Unlike other solutions, there's no code interpretation happening. There's no code execution happening in your iOS app. This is a fully compiled 100% machine language type. This is a binary that runs proper. You don't have, and again, because of that, you don't have any large globby binary sizes, right? There's no like translation stuff happening. You don't have, and I think the biggest one, right, is there's no performance cost. You're not losing efficiency in your app. You're not slowing things down because you're doing this. That's super important to a lot of people. Everything uses public APIs. This isn't some shady thing. This is 100% legit. The cool thing is he updates everything as new SDK updates come out. So this is real time being updated. One huge thing, and one of the reasons I wore my GitHub hoodie today, is the community for this versus if you're going to be a Objective-C developer doing iOS apps is way huger. There is a ton more reference implementations. There are a ton more of open source projects out there to get started, to learn from, to build from once you get RUBYMOTION. And if any of these are companies you use or know about, these are companies that are using RUBYMOTION for their production iOS apps in the App Store. 37 Signals just released theirs. It's a beautiful app. If you're worried about, well, can it really do as good of an app as it can? So check out what they've done. It's pretty cool. So this guy, again, did leave his job with Apple that I'm sure was very lucrative and started this startup, and he's really just bootstrapped it along. RUBYMOTION, when it first came out, cost $150. That was a, hey, introductory type price to get people excited and on board. It was a hard decision because, again, I'm not developing this for any serious reason. I didn't really know if I was going to be good at it, or I don't know if I'm still good at it, but it was a thought to put the money in, and it does suck that it costs. Yes, I'm an open source guy primarily, but business is business, right? So it's a great thing, and hopefully you guys will see that it might be worth the money for you. So license support updates. There's no like next version will be $50 more. It's all inclusive once you have it. The Apple development program. You're basically paying $100 per year to Apple for the allowance to build stuff that will be able to get put in the App Store. So there is a pretty high, relative to the Android marketplace, there is a much higher cost to entry, if you will, and recurring cost to entry. What you can do without Apple Developer, if you want to do RUBYMOTION for really just fun, you could actually just go ahead and play with the simulator and stuff on your computer and that kind of stuff. But if you want it in the App Store, it's not going to get you very far. My buddy, actually, he has an OS 10 VM. He does do iOS development using it. Computers are pretty impressive and powerful these days, so running a VM like that is not a huge deal anymore. And they will be taking 30% of your revenue. So get on board with that or go somewhere else, I guess. And it does suck because you look at your sales numbers, even if they're small, and you're like, oh, I made X dollars, because you translate number of times of price by sales equals my money, right? And then you're like, oh, slash, and kind of sad. So community, again, I can't really emphasize that enough. Just in a quick kind of RUBYMOTION searching, advanced search on GitHub, 370 RUBYMOTION projects, or repos, I should say. Clearly, there are many more of that, and I probably didn't do a great job searching, but RUBYMOTIONapps.com basically indexes the location of the projects. So there's obviously a lot of projects out there you can reference from, learn from, build from. There's actually MotionCast TV now, so if you want to learn things much better than you'll learn them here today, you can watch these screencasts and get some information on how to build apps and get started. They actually just had their first RUBYMOTION conference called Inspect. I think it was Belgium, somewhere in Europe, let's go with. And so this is important for me because, again, I'm not trying to make my living off this. So all of my actual pay for on the App Store stuff is online for free on GitHub. Because it seems shitty to learn from all these awesome people putting their code online and then me not really having to make my living off this and not put my code back online, right? That doesn't seem very cool. So all of my projects, whether I put them on the App Store for free or I sell them, all of my code's on GitHub. It's all out there. Because really, if you're going to spend $200 to get RUBYMOTION, and then you're going to be talented or skilled or whatever enough to go on GitHub, download, clone my repo, build it in RUBYMOTION, put it on your phone, you can have it, because I'm only selling it for 99 cents in most cases, right? I'm not worried about that lost revenue, right? So a quick comparison. I mean, some people might go, well, this isn't impressive. I'm not stressed out by this scenario. But so there's some Objective-C, and there's the same thing in RUBYMOTION. So if you're a low ceremony kind of developer and you don't like a lot of stuff in your programming, Objective-C is pretty noisy. There's a lot of good stuff happening in Objective-C. I don't think Objective-C is a bad language. It's just not something that I'm familiar with or good at. If you've done Ruby or you've done scripting, this is probably a lot more palatable. It's probably a lot more familiar. It's probably a lot less scary. So, and there's a million of these web pages online, like look at this Objective-C and look how easy it is in RUBYMOTION. So if this doesn't convince you, maybe take a look elsewhere. But for me, these kinds of things are a quick way to see, look, this looks like something I could do versus this looks like something I could learn if I put a lot of time into it, which isn't a bad thing, of course. So I've got a couple of videos in here. I hope they show up okay, but they're just about a minute and a half long each one. I'll try to narrate a little bit through them. So this main folder, and I can actually pause, right? Oh, this is going to be fun at all. So this main folder, the one I just LS'd out, basically when you create a new RUBYMOTION project, it does kind of like a Rails project. You use Rake, if anyone is a Rails developer. So you get your Rake file, you get an app folder and a resources and a spec folder by default. And that's where your stuff goes, no big deal. In your app folder, that's where all your actual good stuff, your controllers and stuff go, right? So that's the primary part that most of you would have to deal with if you built an app. Resources are things like images and sounds and other things like that. And spec, of course, if you're doing testing. So again, I said it was using Rake. So again, if you're a Rails developer, you know what Rake is. And you can kind of see from the commands there, this is all how you build, how you test, how you go through the process of simulator or uploading to your device or making a archive that's suitable for the App Store. You know, that's all the commands that you need after you write code. It's a pretty straightforward process. So if you just do Rake, what it'll do, it'll build your app and it'll open the simulator. So those are two separate commands technically in the output, but this is the quick way to start testing or whatever. And of course, just like anything else that's compiled, once you compile it once, you change your one file you have, and the recompile doesn't take very long. So it's just changing whatever changed. So this is a app about, there's a game called Pool 100 if you're a pool player. Basically, you count up a score for a player, depending on what pocket they hit in, it's a certain value. And then you add that up, and if you go to 100, you win. If you go over 100, your score wraps over. So a really simple pool game. This was the first app I built. I iterated it on a lot. I didn't have the pool table background. I didn't have some of the buttons, the overlays, the rules, the tabs. So again, just like any good project that you're learning with, you start, you iterate, you build, you learn new things, you add new libraries, you add new SDK functionality, and eventually you get something that it works, right? We used it in my office. We play pool in my office, and we use it when we play, and we put it on the Apple TV on the big screen and use it for scorekeeping. So if the point of anything good for utility is making it work and do what you need, it's perfect. All right, so that's that one. So one thing that there is what's called a REPL, REPL, read, eval, print, loop. So what you can do, which is neat, and this isn't a built-in feature to like iOS Xcode or anything else. You can if you can see there, I'm highlighting in that red box, and it's actually selecting the object that I'm working with in the simulator, and it's basically referencing that inside of the actual terminal there. So we'll go over to the rules page, we'll highlight some more stuff, you'll see some more things pop up on the screen, and eventually we'll actually get to doing something. I hope I get there too. All right, so you see the reference I'm at currently. So I'm on the background of this entire thing. So I'm doing self background color. It's by default black, so it's nil. And now it's red. So this is the kind of example where if you're trying to do testing and you don't want to compile, recompile, compile, change, compile, you can test things live, not update your binary at all, and it'll do the updates for you real time so that you can go, okay, this is exactly what I want. Now I'll go back to my code and actually do what I want. So again, changing text, and this applies to all the elements. You can change all these things, set things, update, etc. So again, so if you want to change fonts, and what happens a lot, especially when doing text input, you start going, oh, this is going too wide on one side, or the box isn't over 5 pixels. Will it look better if I do that? All these things take time when you recompile every time you want to update. This saves a lot of time because, of course, you can see it real time, update the code once, and be done with it. Oof, that's not great. So there's some Ruby up there, if anyone can see that, actually. And effectively, if you've written Ruby or really any scripting, like let's say a PHP or something, you're probably going to be okay with the syntax. You define classes. Defs are functions or methods in the Ruby space. You create objects. You do object methods. So this kind of stuff is basically the entire, if you will, main controller. So the app delegate is the main controller of any app. So very straightforward, very clean, a couple dozen lines of code, nothing overwhelming. And again, this is one of those things that it's, aside from the text that I ripped out because it was too long, you're basically just calling a bunch of chained methods or individual methods on these objects. You're saying, I want to set the background color to X. I want to add text here at this position. So if you've ever done any kind of layout stuff, if you've ever done HTML, CSS even, the kind of knowledge you have to do basic app development in RubyMotion is very minimal. And again, with 1,800 or so apps, code repos, there's obviously plenty of examples to look at and start learning from, just like any other programming language. So there's a huge wrappers, libraries, API, et cetera, community out there. People making even the simple things in RubyMotion still are implementing the iOS SDK, which in and of itself has some labor you have to put in to actually build apps still. So some of these wrappers, they do everything from making methods easier with bubble wrap. So bubble wrap will do things like, I want to make a HTTP call and I want to output XML and I want to loop through that XML. Bubble wrap will help with that kind of stuff. Teacup is on the side of the layout of the page, integrating CSS, style sheets and stuff like that. So just very easy things to help you do. NanoStore and Motion, again, database. The database stuff directly is kind of tedious and ugly to store data in your app. And this makes it a little simpler. So just all these examples of things that will help you. So even if you're kind of overwhelmed still with some of the Ruby development or translation to iOS SDK stuff, this will actually even make things easier than before. And if anyone is a developer with iOS, you can actually use CocoaPods as well. Those do integrate. And if you're a Rails developer or Ruby developer, people do port gems over that are compatible. Native gems to Ruby are not compatible, but people have translated them to be compatible with RubyMotion. So App Store submission, things I get wrong, because I think these are things that if you guys are going to do this, you're going to get frustrated and hopefully we'll skip you some time. You're going to have development code sign inserts and you're going to have production code sign inserts. One is for your phones, like your mobile phone that you're going to deploy it on. One is for the App Store. If you don't change it, you're not going to get an error that's going to be direct enough to tell you forgot. So make sure you change those before you try to make an app that's going to go to the App Store. There's Rake Archive, and then there's Rake Archive Distribution. Archive will create the IPA file that you need to put on a phone, but the distribution will make the IPA file you need to put on the App Store. Even though both are IPAs, it's a little confusing when you go through that, and it doesn't give you, again, a good error message. I've built apps on, or tried to build apps and realized it wasn't my main development machine, which then again, with all the PKI stuff for the crypto, you need the keys on the system that you're gonna do this development on. Process, it's about a week, generally speaking. But if you get rejected, things get a lot more interesting, and some ambiguity starts happening. So in Michigan, and I'm sure states, Kevin can probably speak to this some, in order, if you don't have your concealed carry permit, you have to do this basic questionnaire type thing to make sure that you're not a complete moron about, firearms. So I had written a really good app, in my opinion, for like quizzing and some other stuff. So I took that quiz portion of my one other app, decided, hey, I'll do this for this, Michigan basic training pistol thing, right? Just gut it, put new data in, and you have a new app for this thing that wasn't on the App Store. No one else had done it, so I figured why not put it out there for free, maybe make people less useless when it comes to firearms. So first submission, get a rejection. Some time lapses because I really don't care that much. Next submission, time lapse. Next submission, time lapse. Finally, the third time I got it submitted. So point one, I'm not proud of this app and how it looks. Don't worry about that. You're not going to offend me. What's interesting is that version 1, 2, and 3, you can see that version 1 and 2, I added like the second thing about the buying process of a firearm. I think because what they had told me was there weren't enough Apple elements in my app. And so it's not like a conversation. There's like a feedback form. And they basically tell you you suck. And then you go, well, why? And they don't really tell you. They just leave it until you submit something else and tell you suck again. So you have to guess. You really have to guess. So, so I figured, okay, I'm going to add this menu bar thing. I'm going to add another page. I'm going to add some more content, and maybe that'll sway them. That didn't sway them. So what did I have to do? I had to add these stupid graphics that I stole off Google Image Search that looked terrible, and that passed because they're image buttons instead of text buttons. That is what made the ultimate difference in this equation. So good luck with Apple. So these are my apps. And do I have till 12 or do I have 1 minute left? Okay, cool. Oh, good point. Okay. So these are my apps. Pool 100 you saw, the quiz you basically saw. Let's Camp is whenever I go camping, I always have like a supplies list, a food list. There's a map built in so you can put where your campsite plot is, some basic stuff like that. Again, just fun stuff. PTCB study guide. My wife's a pharmacist, so there's this pharmacy technician certification. And I looked on the App Store. There were some apps, but none of them seemed like they were great or really comprehensive. So I figured, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I have like a content expert. Why not use her to build an app and take advantage of that? So app demos, I will forego that and see if we have a little bit of time. I'd rather go through these last slides. You've already seen some demo, obviously. So sales numbers, sweet animation, right? Sales numbers, Pool 100 was my first app. That's been out since June, okay? So no surprise, right? This is a niche app I'm selling for 99 cents. People barely want to pay 99 cents for like the best game ever. So I'm lucky I've sold 12 of those for that. Let's Camp, what is it, 6? Again, niche app. You could do it with like a pen and paper if you really don't care, or another, like a notepad app on your phone for some of the stuff anyways. So PTCB study guide has been out like 3 months maybe. So very clearly you can tell which of my apps has been really successful that are paid for, right? I have 3 paid apps, 1 free. And then the pistol quiz, the thing about the pistol quiz, and I don't know, maybe someone knows more about the App Store and how people do stuff, or maybe like it's app aggregation websites. I've sold like maybe half of the copies for that quiz. Again, it's Michigan quiz. It's very to China. I've sold them to Brazil. So I'm guessing people just download all the free apps, like take screenshots, farm content on Google, hoping for like traffic for ad revenue or phishing or whatever. There's got to be some reason that people are downloading because there's no benefit to them whatsoever. So So CB study guide has pretty much put me closer to the black on my app developer account for the year. Because again, it's $100. If you take, so you're about $70 there. You're another $10 or whatever there for the other app. So I'm getting close, and I'm still got about 4 months or so until I'm kind of at my 1-year anniversary, if you will, for this whole project. So getting there, going well. So based on the pharmacy app, content is everything, unless your app is like super fun or super interesting or beautiful or something else that's going to get people to buy it. The content thing is, again, there are like 5 or 6 other apps, and they're priced pretty close to me, but I'm one of the lower priced entities because, again, just like any good business model, the person that doesn't have to worry about selling for a high value to get their money back or to live on can always undercut the market. So in terms of capitalism, I'm the guy most of you hate when you try to do contracts or want to sell stuff like. So for me, the content, again, content like that is all free. Drug names are drug names. Drug history is drug history. Drug acts are drug acts. That doesn't change. It's not like intellectual property. This is just common knowledge, fact type stuff. So if you want to do apps, I would recommend things like study guides, like I want to build a Linux study guide, or I want to build a Nagio study guide, or I want to build a information security, cheat sheet, or just any of those kind of cutesy niche things. Like I can imagine, like I have my CISSP. That I know there's apps out there, but I'm sure there's enough market space that if you undercut and get some content, you probably could do pretty well on that kind of thing. So look at the content angle. Start the process of this whole thing early, especially the DNB thing if you don't want to pay for it. I would say start your company as soon as possible, right, when you want to do it. As soon as you can submit to DNB, submit. Start doing app development, and then hopefully in a month, you'll be ready to throw something on the App Store. DNB, separate personal business finances. Don't pierce the veil, if you will. Don't let the legal stuff come to hit you as a person. Hide it behind your entity and don't do anything illegal. RUBYMOTION frameworks, they save a lot of time. Just like any framework, right? They're going to save you time, make things easier. And so my buddy, if you guys saw I don't know why this seemed like a good idea. As you can probably tell from my other work and my logo thing, these aren't designed by me. I think they're all pretty nice. My friend did it. I basically bought him a bottle of cognac, and we called it good for four icons. So it's one of those things, get someone, because really, and I'm sure all you guys can agree to this, if you're looking at random apps, you're going to want to find an app that has a nice icon. It's just one of those aesthetic things you're going to look for, and it's going to be more acceptable to you. So I have 3 slides worth of links and all the stuff I talked about. So if you are interested in doing some of this stuff, whether it's for your state or different state, hopefully that gets you started. And all the slides will be up on uncompiled.com, which is my site. They'll also be on speakerdeck.com and SlideShare. So you'll be able to find me. And then I'll just spend a minute or two if I can get the terminal open. Doesn't really matter. Oh no. A very large phone. So, I mean, just things like this, right? This is my free app on the App Store. You could apply that to just about any technology, right, or anything and do that. The study guide one this is the one I had been selling. Obviously, I put a little more time into the layout, divided the content out, use some of the Apple built-in things like the index. You can click on a drug, for instance, and it'll give you all the information about that drug specifically. Same thing for like drug schedules. If you want your crack cocaine, that's Schedule 1, just adds up. Your methadone, your Oxycontin. So it's all divided up. So if you're trying to study, obviously you can kind of look at things backwards and forwards and start getting that knowledge. Drug suffixes, all the abbreviations for different things, measurements that are important to pharmacy tech, all the codes that you see on the script pad that you have no idea what the fuck they mean. This is where those come in. So based on all that content then I built a quiz mode. which takes these things and then, again, flips the order, puts the information in different ways. And then you kind of just blow through here. And I know this is killing Sarah inside that I'm just doing random things. Right? So it's just a quick quiz, and then you can go back and it'll restart and do new questions and go on and on and on. Law stuff, again, just quick study guide, all public information, no big deal. And then the information where I say, hey, I'm not a pharmacy professional, you should not trust me, this could make you get arrested by your local state government DEA. Because disclaimers are always good, right? You don't want to have to test the law on that stuff. So again, not a super impressive app. The organization stuff is all called with, I should say, sorry, all done with ProMotion, which is one of the frameworks I mentioned in there. So kind of this, the tabular layout, the sectioned off look. You basically just farm content in, call it up, it indexes it, it does all the hard work. So the app itself is really simple. It's the content that took the time to organize, clean up, build, ask Sarah a million questions for. So you can imagine that if I took this app and then took any of these other ideas I brought out, if I can get someone to generate content for me for cheap, and I can hit enough of a niche market like a PTCB or even a bigger market like CISSPs or other certification exams, you can make a few bucks if you get a low enough content buy-in. And if you can do it yourself, of course, that's free. If you can get someone else to do it, maybe it's worthwhile if you think you're going to get enough revenue off of it. But one app, you can literally just translate into a million other apps. And I think we all see that on the App Store once in a while. We'll see someone change like the icon and the name, but the app's the same, and like the headings or titles are changed. So you can kind of rinse and repeat and get some added value out of the work you do. So, but yeah, I mean, that's it. Does anyone have any quick questions? Yeah. So RUBYMOTION, I'm a Ruby developer, so RUBYMOTION is super palatable for me. I don't know of a Ruby Droid or anything. I have, obviously, my MacBook, I have my iPhone, I have my iPad at home. So for me, that's my area. That's just something. And again, I'm not trying to dominate the market, so for me, it's not a big deal. But, yeah. Other questions? Going back? Yeah. Yeah, so there are database backends within native to iOS, and then like those wrappers I was mentioning make it easier to work with. That's how I did most of the content in here. It comes from an internal database that I just ship with the app. Other people, certainly they are going to do, depending on how complex and what they want to deal with, and whether it's offline or not, they're probably going to call out, get updates, pull it down like an XML, store the XML in the app, and then go back to the a month later, get another update, pull it down. For me, this content is static. There's not a lot changing here. If I do release an update, it's going to be in like a year or 2 years or something. So for me, all the content's just built in. There's no live call out. And the nice part about not using like a live API, of course, is it's all on the app. If you want to study on the train and you have no internet, it still works just fine. Yeah. So yeah, that Michigan one, I forget what the date was, but that Michigan pistol thing's only been up for, I don't know, 2 months or a month and a half or 2 months or something. And I mean, that one's up to like 125 in terms of downloads. And it's such a niche thing. Like I said, like it says Michigan pistol, like it's very straightforward. So I think it's just people downloading free apps to index and kind of spam with or whatever else. I can't imagine there's people in China that really care about Michigan law or similar. So. Yeah. Of course, I didn't turn on the internet, so this might actually even break. We'll find out. Could be a bug. Yeah, okay, look, I did error-proof. So this one is the camping one, active.com. If you guys are runners or anything else, you probably know Active. They actually have a campground API, which is like, what do you, other than me, who needs that? But it's completely free, even for commercial use. So I will call out to them. So there's actually this campground search. And in the settings here, you can actually pick a style of campground or type of campground and a state for campground. When you go back over to the campground one here, it'll actually populate and it'll say whether pets are allowed, whether sewage is there, that kind of stuff. So yeah, for that app, I do make external API calls. Sure. You basically just submit a new binary, a new archive, and then you submit. They're a little bit more sticklers now about like things like screenshots, because what people used to do is submit screenshots, upload the binary, because those are separate processes, and then they would change the screenshots. So like they'd say like, they'd put a literal screenshot of the actual app in, then they'd change the screenshot to like Twilight, or they'd change it to something that people are gonna download in droves or whatever, and it tricks people to download, pay $1, and the App Store, unlike Android, getting a refund, good fucking luck. It's not happening very easily. You basically have to be convicted with Apple as a liar, cheater, spammer, whatever, because getting a refund as an individual is not easy. So in terms of the update, I mean, it's just package new rake archive distribution, click you have a new update, give an update number, upload screenshots, and upload the binary through the normal process, and you're done. Yep. I've never thought of that. I'm pretty sure that the apps will always stay there. No? Oh, okay. See, and that's one of those like foresight things. I haven't planned to stop doing it, so I never looked at that. So I appreciate the info. That's definitely good knowledge to have for sure. Absolutely. Any other questions? Yeah. No. Yeah, this is about the most promotional thing I'm ever going to do for my entire company, I would say, is this talk right here. Yeah. Yeah, and it's one of those things, especially for that one app, because that is a free app. Whether or not it gets downloaded, again, all my code's on GitHub. So whether or not someone wants the info itself, if you Google for Michigan Pistol Safety Quiz, that info is already on Google in a million places. I've just made it an app for me for doing it for fun, but also if someone really wants to study the 10 questions over and over and over, I guess they could do that. But yeah, it's one of those things. Again, maybe at some point I will make a determination. I want to put more effort behind these. Each of these apps, other than maybe my first one because I iterated so many times, I mean, we're talking like, let's call it a week of work. It's not like I've spent, like some people spend days, months, years of their life designing, building, hiring people out, getting, I pay my designer in cognac. I do this on the weekend after I get home from work at my normal job. So I don't think app stores are really that, or I should say, I don't think app development, if you're a sole proprietor, is really a super lucrative business unless you are an awesome developer, or again, you have content just to the nines. It's been a good realization when I talk to app developers, because now I know how hard their life is to really make inroads within a certain community or a certain type of app. It takes time, and definitely promotion comes into that, certainly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of cheating too, remember, because I do actually do Linux and security consulting, which does feed my company money. My revenue, iOS versus consulting, in 1 year of iOS development and being on the App Store, a couple hours of consulting will pay for all of that. So if I was an app developer, 100%, that's my company, it would be different. I would highly recommend putting more effort and time. But for me, I'm in the black. I'm way in the black on this whole company. The App Store stuff, again, is kind of just, it's a great learning experience like anything else. It's been a lot of fun. Yep. Anyone else? Great. Well, thanks for coming. I appreciate your time.